We're here on Mackworth Island, which is just off the coast of Maine in Casco Bay. This island is steeped in history which predates colonial settlement. The island was once used by the Wabanaki Confederacy as a seasonal hunting and fishing village for about 10,000 years. Native American artifacts have been found all over the island to attest to their presence. In 1631, the Wabanaki sold the island to an early colonist named Sir Ferdinando Gorges. In 1634, Sir Gorges gifted the island to an early settler named Arthur Mackworth, this island's namesake. For the next 250 years, the island changed hands until it finally came into the possession of the Baxters. Now, the Baxters were a very prominent and wealthy family from Portland, whose son, Percival Proctor Baxter, eventually became the governor of the state. In 1943, Governor Baxter gifted the island to the state of Maine for the sum of $1. This island is now a public park, which is used for hiking, leisure, and exploring. But that's not why we're here today. We're here because there's a pet cemetery on this island, and we've never been to it. So we wanted to bring you along so you could join us on our first visit. The cemetery was created by the Baxters in honor of their 14 Irish setters who are buried here in the cemetery, along with one very special horse named Jerry.
Mackworth Island, known as Menico or Clump of Pines by the Native Americans, has a rich and varied history. The island was originally owned by local Native Americans until 1634, when it was bought by an English settler named Arthur Mackworth. After Mackworth's death, the island changed hands many times before finally being purchased by James Finney Baxter, the father of Governor Percival Proctor Baxter, in 1885. James Finney Baxter, a canning magnate and 6-time mayor of Portland, built a large summer home on the island for his family, which included his wife and 7 children. The island, teeming with horses and Irish setters, was a haven for these animals, living their best lives in an open-range existence. In 1921, Governor Percival Baxter came into possession of Mackworth Island following the death of his father. That same year, he became Maine's 53rd governor, a position he held until 1925. During his tenure, the governor donated vast tracts of land to the state of Maine, which is now known as Baxter State Park, including the crown jewel of the Maine wilderness, Mount Katahdin. Governor Baxter was a staunch advocate for animal rights and belonged to numerous humane societies across the U.S. He once was named America's Greatest Humane Governor by the New England Anti-Vivisection Society. In 1943, Governor Baxter sold Mackworth Island to the state of Maine for $1. He also donated $500,000 to help build the Baxter School for the Deaf, and an additional $175,000 for the causeway between the mainland and the island. The only provision he attached to the sale was that the pet cemetery on the island be left untouched and maintained forever. The pet cemetery on Mackworth Island was built for Governor Baxter's 13 Irish setters. He had been fond of Irish setters since he was 9 years old, and even wrote a children's book titled My Irish Setter Dogs, which told of his experiences raising Irish setters from childhood through adulthood. The last dog he buried in the cemetery was named Gary Owen, nicknamed Gary 2. Gary 2 was with Governor Baxter throughout his time in the State House. When Gary 2 died, Governor Baxter ordered all flags in the state of Maine to be flown at half-mast. This act, while controversial, underscored his deep love for his pets and his commitment to animal rights. The history of Mackworth Island is intertwined with the legacy of the Baxter family, specifically Governor Percival Proctor Baxter. His love for animals and his commitment to their welfare is evident in the pet cemetery that still exists on the island in present times. Despite the controversies, his actions have left an indelible mark on the history of Maine and continue to inspire animal lovers today. So here we are at Governor Baxter's and his family's pet cemetery on Mackworth Island. So this is it. This is the cemetery. Can you see it behind me? It's all this beautiful rock wall. Look at this rock wall.
Jerry.
What?
There's Jerry.
What do you think? Sun's over there. Let me get you over here. Hold on.
Kind of a small grave for a horse. Jerry Roan. A noble horse and a kind friend. Died March 1st, 1904. 35 years old. Baxter's dogs. Governor Baxter's dogs. 40 years. His constant companions. 87 to 26.
Who's that for? No, that one over there.
That one I can't read it.
Is there anything on the other side? I didn't see.
I think it's on the other side. Yeah, this side says Jack, 1923 to 1936. Jack Clements.
23 to 36. Okay.
Is that another horse? Clements? No. These are all of the horses, the dogs. The last in direct line of my 14 Irish setters.
Okay. All right. So we are here. We're inside the burial site, the cemetery right now. This plaque here says, "The State of Maine, by Legislative Act, Chapter 1, Laws of 19..." I just read the monument, but I read it wrong, so this time I'm going to read it right, correctly, properly. Okay, the State of Maine, by Legislative Act, Chapter 1, Laws of 1943, accepted the gift of Mackworth Island and covenanted to maintain forever this burial place of my dogs with the stone wall and the boulder with the bronze marker thereon erected in their memory. Percival P. Baxter. All right, so let me tell you about 5 things that I think you might want to know. So hold on one sec. Okay, so here are 5 things I think you might want to know about Governor Baxter, the man who gave us Mackworth Island and this pet cemetery that's on Mackworth Island. 5 things you might want to know. The first is that Governor Baxter was an avid outdoorsman. He loved fishing. The second thing you might want to know is that he was a conservationist during a time in American history where conservationism was a kind of way out there concept, but he embodied the philosophy of conservationism. Giving us Mackworth Island and Baxter State Park are testaments to his commitment to his belief in his philosophy of conservationism. To put into finer perspective, I mean, his family owned Mackworth Island, and he gave the whole island to the state. That was easy. Baxter State Park was not that easy. All of the land was not owned by Baxter or his family, or even the state of Maine. So he had to work to basically obtain the pockets of land in and around the whole area that we now know as Baxter State Park before he could give it to the state of Maine, and it took a lot of effort. So that just kind of puts that into perspective, how difficult it was to be a conservationist during that time. He found value in conserving certain aspects of Maine for future generations. Thank you, Governor Baxter. The third thing you might want to know about Governor Percival Proctor Baxter is that he went to Bowdoin College, where he graduated with honors and went on to Harvard Law School, where he also graduated with esteem. He didn't practice law after, but he did go to Harvard Law School and he did graduate. Now, part of number 3 is that he started a publication at Bowdoin College that still exists today. It's called The Quill. And so his vision continues on to this very day. The fourth thing I think you might want to know about Governor Baxter is an anecdote, and it's an anecdote from his college days. When he was in Bowdoin College, he and a small number of his friends got arrested for protesting too hard at a William Jennings Bryan presidential campaign stop in Bath, Maine. Oh my. His friends, when they got arrested, were probably kind of like unnerved by it, and they just basically accepted any punishment that came from it. So if they were given a fine or like a citation to pay a fine, they just paid it. They didn't fight it. If they were told they had to spend the night in jail, I'm not sure that that's a thing, but if they did, then that's what they did. But not Governor Baxter. He was still a young man trying to figure out what his role in the world would be, like how he would fit in. He was trying to figure out like what direction he was going to go in. Getting arrested at this protest, he knew that that was not legal. So he asked his father, who I've already probably laid the foundation in my narration for you to understand that his father was very well connected. He was a canning magnate in Portland. He was one of the wealthiest families in Portland. He was the patriarch to one of the wealthiest families in Portland. And he was a 6-time mayor of Portland. So he had means at his disposal, but he wasn't going to give his son a lawyer if his son was just out there rabble-rousing. But that's not what was happening, right? He got arrested for protesting too hard, so his father let him have a lawyer, and the lawyer basically got the whole case thrown out of court because this is a First Amendment violation. Okay? So maybe that's what set Governor Baxter onto the path to study law at Harvard Law School. Okay, so the fifth thing I think you might want to know about Governor Baxter really is the longest, and it's the important things to him that he wanted us to know, wanted future Mainers to know. These two things were found in the Soldiers and Sailors Monument that was dedicated by Governor Baxter in 1924 down in Kittery, Maine. So at the dedication, he knew that they were going to put this monument on top of a pedestal, and inside the pedestal was going to be a time capsule for the state of Maine, from the state of Maine. So he goes down into Kittery. He knows what's going to happen. They're going to move the monument onto the pedestal, and they're going to cover the time capsule for 100 years. So he goes down, does the whole speech, all that, dedicates the memorial, and when no one was looking, right, before they moved the monument onto the pedestal to seal the time capsule in, he slips in a letter. So nobody saw this, because there's an inventory of what's in the pedestal, and it's just the time capsule. The time capsule is supposed to sit there for 100 years, untouched, and then it's supposed to be opened 100 years later, so let's say 2024. In 2000, somebody, the state or the city, whoever it was, they send a maintenance crew there to take the monument off the pedestal just to make sure that the pedestal is still intact, it's still on the up and up, everything's good, everything's golden. And what they find inside was this time capsule, yes, but also a letter that it's not on the inventory. They didn't know that the letter was there. They pick up the letter, they look at the letter, they're like, oh my gosh, they see who it's written by Governor Baxter. And on the outside of the letter is a note that says, don't read this until I'm dead. Basically, don't read this until I've passed. Well, he had passed decades earlier. In the letter were two things that he wanted the people of the state of Maine to know. The first was why he died a bachelor, so basically about his romantic life. And the second was about his views on animals. So I'll tell you about the first part. The first part was that Governor Baxter was never married. And this was partly by choice. I want to make that clear. It was partly by choice. So he did have opportunities to get married, and that's what I'm going to talk about. So the first opportunity that he had to get married was to a young woman named Margaret Payson. Her family was just as wealthy as Governor Baxter's family was. Who knows, maybe even more so. To put some backing to that statement, to give you like a foundation to that statement, her family helped start the Portland Museum of Art with a donation in 1901 of $1 million. In today's time, that's $32 million. They just were like, here, take $32 million and go, in their time, take $1 million and go start a museum. Okay, so that's the kind of money that her family had, and his family bought an island and built a bridge from the island to the mainland, which is unheard of and incredibly expensive. So you can understand the joining of the union of these two families would be explosive. She wasn't interested. I don't know why. I don't know the circumstances. I do know that it broke his heart. He dealt with it, but at least he asked. The second woman was a 27-year-old Italian woman named Donna Santa Borghese. Donna Santa Borghese was everything. Please believe me when I say this. I'm going to throw a whole bunch of adjectives at you in a second. It's going to hopefully encapsulate how hard Percival Proctor Baxter fell for Donna Santa Borghese. So he met this woman, he just fell head over heels. She was everything. She was beautiful, she was smart, she was cunning, she was funny, she was sarcastic, she was intrepid, she was witty, she was risky, she had a lust for life. Her creativity could not be hidden. It was just there. She was everything to him. He had every intent on asking her to marry him. He was ready. And right when he went to do it, he decided he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't even ask her, because if she said yes, she would wind up spending the rest of her life hanging off of his arm, because he had a direction that he was going in, and that was accepted. Not just accepted, that was expected back then. Back in that time period, the wife followed the husband, and he could not imagine himself being the one to snuff out her lust for life, so he never asked. I'm almost certain, based on the contents of the letter, that this was among his greatest regrets. Maybe even the biggest regret of his life is that he never even asked her. It's not that he asked her like Margaret and she said no. He never knew what the answer was going to be. He never knew if she was going to say yes, if she was going to say no. Maybe she would say yes and he would say, we can't do this, because he respects her too much. Or maybe she would have said yes and they would have lived happily ever after. He never knew, and it bothered him to the day he died. The second thing in the letter that he wanted us to know. He wanted us to know that, but he really wanted us to know this. And this pet cemetery is a testament to all of that, all of what I'm about to tell you. He wanted Mainers to understand that the time period that he was living in was not a good one for animals, not a good one for the treatment of animals at the hands of people. And he always hoped that Mainers would evolve to treat animals and to view animals with more compassion and more humanity, basically. In his time period, things were not good. They were not good. People were very cruel to animals, and it was hard for him to deal with. So he actually put it in this letter to be opened 100 years later, to let people know what his sentiments were in his time, and that not many people around him reflected his similar sentiments, and it bothered him immensely. As you could tell, he buried 14 of his dogs here and one of his horses, and made sure that when the state of Maine took control of this island, that they made sure to promise that they would keep up this cemetery in perpetuity forever. In perpetuity, forever. And not just as a token act either. The state of Maine has to actively make sure that this cemetery is taken care of at all times. It was one of the very few, actually, not many, one of the very few directives that came with handing over this island. Okay, so this is Mackworth Island. This is the pet cemetery on Mackworth Island. And basically that's the whole video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, Tony would like to actually ask you to do something.
If you like this video, subscribe to our Maine Ghost Hunters YouTube channel, and you'll see more of these videos, or more videos like this. And also, if you know more information about these videos than we have talked about in them, just comment below and let us know. Yeah, drop us some comments below, give us a thumbs up, share it with your friends and family. Until next time.
Until next time.
All right, until next time, everybody.
Adios. Bonjour. Au revoir.
Wait, Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen.